Hello, this is Olivia, and welcome to my channel, Justice in Her Hands, with a new original story. Let's begin. The call came while the kettle hissed, and the kitchen smelled faintly of last night's onions. Cole's voice had that careful politeness he uses when he's asking me to do something he knows is wrong. He said the house needed to look perfect, the food needed to be restaurant level, and I should keep a low profile so the evening flows. My mouth went dry. I looked at my hands, dishwater soft, flour in the lines, and felt that old ache at my wrists from years of carrying platters to other people's tables. When he hung up, the kettle clicked off and the silence pressed against my ears. A text buzzed from Dylan. A bullet list. No, please. No, thank you. Just orders, and a note that their guests prefer discreet service. Discreet, meaning me invisible in my own home. I set the phone down like it was hot. The window was cracked, and a strand of cold air slid over my cheeks, carrying the scent of wet pavement. June knocked and let herself in with that soft hello she saves for when my voice might be brittle. She took one look at the list on my screen and another at my face, then reached for a towel and wiped the clean counter, slow and steady, the way a person touches a person without touching them. "You breathing, Nora?" she asked, and I realized I was holding my breath. I let it out and it came shaky, like I'd run somewhere. My heart did a dull thud under my sweater, determined but tired. "They don't mean to be cruel," I said, the words thin even to me. "They're just excited." June's eyebrow lifted. "Excitement doesn't turn a mother into hired help," she said. "You taught those boys to use forks and feelings." I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I imagined myself moving around the stove tomorrow, invisible, listening to my sons brag while I refilled glasses. I pictured one of their guests asking who catered, and Cole answering, "Oh, we have someone," not looking my way. The image scraped the inside of my chest. June's hand brushed my elbow. "Look at me," she said. I did. Her eyes were clear, lake water blue. "What happens to you if you do this again?" The answer came like a whisper from the place where my back remembers being bent. I disappear a little more. I thought about money, the thin savings, the mortgage that still has years left, the job at the dental office that keeps the lights on. I thought about reputation, how the town already thinks I'm easy to ask favors from because I never say no. And I thought about family, how being useful has become my only role, like I'm a chair everyone leans on, but no one sees. My throat burned the way it does before tears, but the tears didn't come. Something else did. A steadiness. It didn't feel like anger. It felt like finally standing on both feet. I opened the laptop. The screen glow made the kitchen look colder. Flights winked at me like distant porch lights. I picked one that left in the morning and came back after the dinner, just enough space to create a quiet absence the size of me. My finger hovered. My stomach flipped. Not pleasant, not awful. That ride crest feeling right before roller coaster tips. June squeezed my shoulder. "Choose yourself, honey," she said, voice low. The click sounded small. The world shifted. When the confirmation email landed, the room smelled different, like the lemon soap was sharper. My hands stopped shaking. I set the phone to silent. A breeze rattled the blind, and somewhere a siren threaded through traffic far away. I imagined my boys standing in their suits, scanning a doorway I didn't walk through. I imagined them realizing the only person who ever set their table was not there to rescue them. The thought didn't make me smug. It made me sad, and then, oddly, strong. I rinsed the mug, dried it, and for the first time in years, left the counter a little messy on purpose. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The house felt different the next morning, like it was holding its breath with me. The air had that thin chill before sun climbs the maple outside my kitchen window, and the tile was cold under my arches as I moved barefoot from pantry to suitcase, picking what to take. I kept touching things I usually lay out for everyone else: the roasting pan, the linen runner, the good knives, and then pulling my hand back like I'd brushed a hot stove. I packed light. One dress, a sweater that doesn't wrinkle, the worn paperback I've tried to finish twice. My fingers shook only once when I folded my passport into the side pocket. I didn't need it, but the weight steadied me. Insurance, I told myself. Proof I can cross a border if I have to. Silly. Not silly. June texted before dawn. Car's outside in 5. I'll sit with you till security. She arrived with coffee that tasted like toasted almonds and a grocery bag of small, practical things. Mints, a phone charger, those little hand wipes that smell faintly of citrus. She doesn't fuss. She places. She exists beside me with a softness that lets me keep my spine straight. We left the kitchen light on, a beacon or a dare. I couldn't tell which. On the hall table, I set a letter in my careful handwriting, the kind I use for condolence cards. Cole, Dylan. The kitchen is closed to me today. This home is not a venue, and I am not staff. If you host here, hire help, clean up after, and lock up. I'll speak with you Sunday at 3. Mom. No apology. No explanation they could twist into permission. We rolled my suitcase over damp sidewalk. The wheels clicked at a rhythm that matched my heartbeat. The car heater blew warm air at my ankles and made the scent of June's lotion, lavender, and something peppery fill the small space. Streetlights blinked out in a line as we hit the main road, like a row of eyes deciding not to witness me going. At a red light, my phone vibrated hard enough to rattle in the cup holder. Cole. Then Dylan. Then a group message they'd started without me, forwarded by mistake months ago, and still occasionally dripping onto my screen like a leaking faucet. Confirming Bennett Lasker, plus spouse, Alderman Wade Merrick, Marjorie Keene from the Harbor Conservancy. Important, then. Important enough to make their mother invisible. The name Bennett skated over my memory. Real estate, I thought. Or banking. Someone who measured people by square footage. At the airport, the air smelled like fryer oil and jet fuel, and the loudspeaker kept clearing its throat. June hugged me once, a press and a pat, and said, "Your absence is a sentence, Nora. Let it read." I laughed, but my stomach felt like a fist. Security took my shoes. The floor was gritty. A baby cried 2 lanes over, and an old man argued about a pocket knife. Nothing about the world rearranged itself for this one small rebellion except me. On the other side, I sat by a window streaked with last night's rain and typed a text I could live with. I won't be available to prep or serve. There's a note on the table. If you need help, hire it. Love you. Mom. I sent it and turned the phone face down. It kept buzzing anyway, little spasms against the metal armrest. Calls, messages, Cole's complicated justifications, Dylan's short lines that always read like commands. I didn't read them. Not yet. I let the plane board and the runway flash by like silver ribbon, and when the wheels lifted, my throat closed on a sound that wasn't a sob and wasn't a laugh. Just a release. In the air, the world looked tidy. Grids and blue slashes, roofs like stacked envelopes. I thought about bills, auto pay set for mortgage and utilities, a balance that makes my chest tight if I think too long. I thought about reputation, how Mrs. Keene from church will hear I abandoned my sons on a big night and turn it into a cautionary tale. I thought about family, how choosing myself will read as betrayal to the very people who taught me that love looks like service. The flight was short. The seatbelt sign blinked off with a soft chime. I walked out into a different city's light and let it fall on my face like a rinse. I did nothing special. Ate soup that tasted of thyme and cream. Walked a block where wind lifted the leaves into confetti. Sat on a bench and felt the cold through the wood. A clean sting I welcomed because it was mine to feel. By late afternoon, June texted, "Delivery truck at your place. Looks like event rentals." A neighbor sent a photo of a linen bin parked where my hibiscus usually sits. Then, another. A glossy black car at my curb I didn't recognize. The evening was unfurling without me, as intended. I pictured my dining room under rented chandeliers, my boy's voices pitched slightly higher for company, my note on the table ignored or glared at. And under that picture, a quieter one. The line I'd drawn across the floor of my life. Thin, firm, not moving. The hotel room smells like starch and lemon, the kind of clean that squeaks. The heating unit hums with a steady little rattle that puts a rim around the quiet. I sit on the edge of the bed with my shoes off and my toes curling into the dense carpet, scrolling through what I can find about Bennett Lasker. Commercial developments, legacy corridors, ribbon cuttings where he smiles with his teeth but not his eyes. People who live on the other side of those renderings complain in the comments about shade and traffic. I picture Cole standing a little taller beside a man like that, eager, agreeable. I picture Dylan nodding like he always does when he wants something fast. My mouth tastes metallic. I sip water that smells faintly of the plastic cup and set it down too hard. It leaves a wet ring. The phone vibrates against the nightstand, mean and insistent. It is Cole. Then, Dylan. Then, a neighbor's name pops up with a message and a photo. A rental truck wedged across my driveway, orange cones tipping over like sleepy birds, a temp worker smoking near my hydrangeas. June texts a beat later. They got a caterer last minute. 2 servers. One looks 16. Delivery missing ice. My throat tightens, and for a breath I am back in my kitchen, putting out fires with a smile. A reflex rises in my chest, that old quick urge to fix, to feed, to make it seamless so no one ever has to feel awkward. I close my eyes and count slow. 1, 2, 3. Not mine to solve. A new alert blooms on my screen from the bank app. Pending authorization, beacon events and rentals. The amount sits there like a dare. I feel the back of my neck heat. I had not offered my card. I had not offered anything. I call the number on the back of the card, and when the automated voice asks my birth month, I almost hang up. Then a human answers, Tasha Greer, calm, practiced, who listens while I explain in a careful voice that trembles only once. She places a temporary hold, flags the charge, and emails me a form. If the charge posts, you'll contest. You're doing the right thing, she says. The words land like a hand on my back between my shoulders. When I hang up, I realize I have been clenching my jaw so hard my ears ache. Cole tries again. I let it go to voicemail, then listen. His voice is smooth, reasonable, the way a person sounds when they think they are being very fair. He says they hired help like I asked, that they need to know where the big stock pot is and whether the oven runs hot. He drops the names again, each one heavier, like bricks he wants me to notice. We just want tonight to be perfect, he says, and the word perfect makes something tilt inside me. Perfect has always meant invisible mother. I press call. The line clicks. Air moves between us. I will not troubleshoot, I say, before his sentences can start. My voice surprises me. Low, even. Not cruel. If you are hosting, you are responsible. The breaker box, the stock pot, the seasoning, the cleanup, all of it. He exhales into the phone. I can hear a muffled bustle behind him, the clatter of trays, a burst of laughter not meant for me. He speeds up, slips into that soft scold he learned somewhere I never gave him. Mom, this is important. We're trying to make connections. I close my eyes and see my note on the table, my careful handwriting, the line I drew. I know exactly how important it is, I say, which is why I made my boundary clear days ago. I'll speak with you Sunday at 3. I end the call. My hand trembles after, small tremors like the end of a storm moving away. Minutes later, June sends a voice note. I play it with the volume low. They are rattled, she says, voice brisk. Server dropped a tray of glasses on the flagstone. Alderman arrived early. Dylan is pacing like a metronome. Also, your neighbor posted on the community board that there's valet parking on a residential street. People are prickling. A flush climbs my chest. Public consequences are already blooming, petals and thorns. I want to go home, and I do not. I want to save them, and I want them to feel the hollowness of the space they made for me. I stand, press my palm to the cool window, and watch planes taxi like patient beetles in the dark. The city smells different here, oil and steel and rain. I practice my Sunday words out loud, testing their weight in my mouth. Not an ultimatum, not a plea, a policy. In my head, I begin a ledger, keys, access, house rules. My heart slows, steady as the vents hum. Across town, in my house, someone is opening the oven and waving at smoke. In this room, I open the hotel desk drawer and take out the stationery with its neat little crest. I write, "This home will not be used without my consent. Costs are not to be charged to my accounts. If boundaries are ignored, access changes." I slide the paper into my wallet like a talisman, not in case I forget. So I cannot be talked out of remembering. Dusk made the runway lights look like a string of pearls someone had dropped and never picked up. I sat on the bed with the remote in my hand, not pressing any buttons, listening to the air unit breathe for me. June's text buzzed first. "Caterer is improvising. Your oven is running hot, and nobody knows the trick with the back left knob. Server burned a pan. They opened the windows, and now the whole place smells like singed rosemary." I could smell it just reading the words, sharp and bitter, like pride turned to smoke. A second later, she wrote, "Alderman arrived. He brought a +1. Dylan forgot ice again." I felt that old reflex jump in my ribs. Grab keys, fix everything. Be the good mother who knows the hidden drawer with the spare corkscrew. My toes curled into the carpet, and I forced my heels down, grounding, like the moves the physical therapist taught me after my back seized last winter. Stand in your feet. Breathe like you mean it. Another ping, the community board screenshot from a neighbor. Valet cones hemming in our block. Someone complaining a guest car idled across a driveway. Fumes drifting into their nursery. A reply threatening to call code enforcement if unauthorized event operations continued on a residential street. The back of my neck prickled. Not just embarrassment, liability. I pictured my name on the property record, plain as daylight. My palms went damp. I called the HOA office, got the after-hours line, and left a measured message. Unapproved valet, not host, out of town, do not consent. My voice sounded like a version of me I wanted to keep. Calm, precise, not begging. When I hung up, the hum in my ears eased. June's update came in a whisper of a voice memo. I held the phone close, the rubber case warm against my cheek. They tried to wheel a portable bar through the side gate. It stuck. One server is definitely underage. Alderman Wade got splashed with red wine. He laughed with his mouth, not his eyes. Bennett Lasker asked for the host. Dylan said, "She's handling things in the back." The words slid under my skin and itched. I swallowed hard, tasted metal again. "You safe?" I typed. "Yes," she wrote. They offered me a plate like I'm staff. I said I'm a neighbor. I'm leaving. I expelled a breath I didn't know I was holding. Good. Safe. Then Cole's voicemail, tight and honeyed. "Mom, I know you can hear this. We respected your boundary. We hired caterers. But the stove, you know the stove. The pilot's quirky. We just need to find the breaker. Please don't make this a thing. Please don't make this a thing." My jaw locked. A pulse thudded in my temple. I hit play again and caught the murmur of another voice in the background, low and expensive. "Bennett?" The syllables were indistinct, just the tone clear. Impatience wrapped in charm. I put the phone down, palms flat on the coverlet. The polyester was cool, a little slick. I rubbed my fingers together until the skin warmed and the urge to fix other people's choices cooled with it. From the window, I could see a sliver of highway, curving like a wet ribbon. Sirens wrote themselves across it, faint, then louder, then gone. A minute later, June again. Patrol car rolled by, probably for the traffic. Dylan smoothed it, I think, but the officer looked annoyed. Also, someone propped your back door open with the mixer box. The house alarm chirped and then stopped. "I can swing by after dessert to check locks if you want." I closed my eyes and felt that chirp in my bones, the thin, nagging call I have ignored in 1,000 small ways. "Please check," I typed. "Do not engage, just secure." My hand shook once, then steadied. I opened my laptop and pulled up articles on Lasker's latest waterfront revitalization. The renderings had that unreal shine, all glass and plaza trees that never drop leaves. Buried in the third paragraph, a whisper about a zoning variance up for vote. Community engagement evenings meant to demonstrate support. My stomach dipped. If my dining room had been pitched as community engagement, I wasn't just the invisible cook. I was cover. A flash of heat rolled through me, scalp to chest, almost like fever. I imagined Mrs. Keene from the Conservancy seeing her name on a guest list and assuming my endorsement. The aftertaste of time from lunch rose in my throat. I swallowed until it settled. The phone jumped again on the nightstand. A text from Dylan, short and clipped. "Where did you put the stock pot?" No question mark. I stared at it until the edges of the letters blurred, then put the device face down and pressed the heel of my hand between my collarbones until the thudding there slowed. Across town, in my house, they were plating someone else's roasted beets on my grandmother's china. In this room, I sat very still and told myself a truth that felt like a splinter shifting out. Letting a mess be seen is not cruelty. It is clarity. And clarity, finally, is the gift I can afford. Near midnight, the hotel hallway smelled like bleach and tired carpet. I sat by the window, the glass cool through the curtain, when June's photo lit my screen. Bennett Lasker, in my dining room, chin-tipped like he owned the chandelier. Alderman Wade, angled close, both framed by my grandmother's china cabinet. A caption from some guest's post sat under it. "Listening dinner at the Whitman home." My name, my address, their optics. My stomach tightened as if a belt had been cinched one hole too far. I took screenshots, every angle, every tag. The air unit clicked and exhaled, and I could smell the faint metal of dust heating. I opened the neighborhood board and typed a single, steady paragraph. I did not host tonight's event, did not consent to valet or political use of my home, and any implication otherwise is incorrect. Please treat my property like a residence, not a venue. I read it out loud to hear if I sounded angry or clear. Clear. I posted. Then I called the alderman's office after hours line and left my name, address, and a calm request to correct public references that suggest I hosted or endorsed anything. My voice shook once. I let it and finished the message anyway. The phone buzzed again. June's whisper. Power blipped. Someone plugged the portable bar and the warmer into the same strip. House went dark. Guests squealed, then laughed too loud. Dylan is hunting the breaker like it's a riddle. I could see it. The thin flashlight beams jittering over laundry soap and paint cans, the hot dust smell of a tripped circuit, the sudden wet cold of opened windows. Another chime. Underage server cut his finger. They're using your tea towel as a bandage. I pressed my fingertips to my eyelids until stars scattered behind them. Reflex clawed up my throat. Tell them where the first aid kit is. Tell them the trick with the back left knob. Tell them where the extra ice trays hide. I held still and let the urge pass like a wave that doesn't get to take me with it. Cole called. I let it roll to voicemail, then pressed play. Mom, please just tell me where the panel is. Bennett is asking for coffee and we can't get the machine back on. Words polished to sound reasonable. The old sugar poured over entitlement. I called him back before the pleading could turn into scolding. It is labeled, I said. Host your event. I could hear plates clink, a muffled laugh that did not include me. You're making this bigger than it needs to be, he said. I looked at my hands, steady on the phone. No, I said. I'm finally letting it be the size it actually is. I ended the call. My heart pounded a bruised rhythm against my sternum, then eased. A notification slid across the screen, a location tag from a guest. Productive evening in East Harbor with community leaders. My address pinned beneath it. I forwarded it to Bennett's firm with a short note. I am the homeowner. I did not host or consent. Please remove any language implying endorsement and correct the public tag. I copied the alderman's office. No drama, just facts lined up like chairs. Near 1 in the morning, June texted, Dessert done. People straggling to cars. One vendor asked who's paying. Dylan said, Bill the house. Heat rose under my skin. I typed back, Photograph any invoices. Do not argue. Minutes later, backdoor propped with your mixer box. Sideboard chipped. I locked windows, set alarm, took time-stamped photos. Relief washed through me so sharply it almost hurt. I breathed, slow in, slower out, until the tremor left my fingers. I stood and padded to the sink. The hotel water had a chlorine nip. I drank anyway. On the desk, I opened a fresh page and wrote Sunday at 3 in block letters, then listed what would change. Keys collected, access defined, political use prohibited, costs pre-approved in writing, consequences real and prompt. The paper rasped faintly as my pen moved. Outside, a siren lifted and fell. In my chest, something equally steady answered it. Not a siren at all. More like a metronome finally keeping time with the life I want. I slid the list under my wallet, and for the first time all week, turned off the lamp. Without fear, I would wake up to fix someone else's fire. Dawn made the runway look washed in milk as the plane dropped through cloud. I landed with the kind of tired that sits behind the eyes and hums. The rideshare smelled like cinnamon gum and rain-damp upholstery, and my suitcase wheels ticked over the cracked walk when I reached home. The porch air tasted of candle smoke and something sweet that had gone a little sour. When I opened the door, the scent came at me in layers. Spilled wine, scorched rosemary, rental linen starch, a faint ghost of bleach where someone had mopped without rinsing. The quiet was so complete it rang. In the dining room, a pale sunbeam fell over the sideboard's new chip like a spotlight. A fallen menu card lay under a chair leg, glossy and damp around the edges. Community Conservancy Roundtable, hosted at the Whitman residence. My name wasn't printed there, but next to the guest book, someone had set a folded card that said, "Thank you, Nora," in looping ink, as if gratitude could be used like paint to cover trespass. I felt the smallest tremor start in my calves and move upward, not panic, not rage, just my body telling me this matters. I took photographs, one careful angle after another, the paper rasp of the card against my fingertips, the grit of glass near the baseboard under my shoe. June let herself in gently, a knuckle on wood and a low, "It's me." She handed me a cloth grocery sack. I grabbed what the vendors left on the lawn, 2 corkscrews, a box of soggy stir sticks, and a receipt pad. The pad bore a carbon copy with my street name and the words "Bill on file." My mouth went dry. I called the bank before the fear could grow edges, reached the same calm woman as last night, and filed the formal dispute. While she typed, my heart slowed to something reasonable. "Document everything," she said. "You already are." When I hung up, the phone lit with a new number. A voice introduced itself as communications from Lasker's office, warm and polished, the tone you use for donors or problems that carry microphones. He was so sorry for any confusion, eager to update language, keen to avoid unnecessary noise. Then came the part tucked in silk. If we agreed not to repost corrections, they would make this right quietly, perhaps with a contribution in my name to the Conservancy. The word quietly slid along my nerves like ice. "I will accept written corrections posted publicly where the misstatements appeared," I said, feeling each word find a place to stand. "I want reimbursement for damages and any charges attempted to my accounts, and I want my home removed from any list that suggests community engagement without explicit consent." He paused long enough for the line to feel empty, then promised someone would be in touch. When I ended the call, I could taste metal again, but fainter now, like an old coin you've decided not to keep in your mouth. Cole's message arrived with that quick-clipped energy he gets when he is cornered. I'd made a scene online, made them look small, made powerful people uncomfortable. Dylan texted moments later, no greeting, just the accusation that I'd overreacted and embarrassed family. The words pricked and then went dull. I typed one sentence to both. "We will speak Sunday at 3. Then I set the phone face down and listened to the house answer back in the small ways a house does. Heater tick, fridge hum, a faint glass clink from somewhere I hadn't found. June moved beside me, steady as a post. "You did not make a scene," she said. "You flipped on the lights." We walked the rooms like inspectors. A smear of chocolate along a doorframe at shoulder height. A ring stain on the table where someone set a sweating bottle without a coaster. Wax dripped into the crocheted runner my mother made when her hands were still sure. I pressed a thumb against it, felt the bump, imagined steam and patience bringing it up, imagined the opposite, leaving it, a small white scar to remember this night by. On the console sat a stack of tent cards, one reading "Host" with my address typed beneath as if an address could stand in for a person. Underneath lay a single sheet from the alderman's office, the header crisp: "Community Listening Dinner, Private Residence." Not my signature. Not any signature. A shape of me without me inside it. We opened windows for air. Cold slid along the floor and lifted the smell of overcooked rosemary and pride that has gone to smoke. Outside, a neighbor glanced over her hedge and waved too brightly, and I tasted the beginning of the gossip in her smile. I waved back with a small, professional curve of my mouth and shut the window. My hands were steady. In the kitchen, I set the folded thank you card on the counter and rested my palm over it until I felt my own pulse. It was not fast. It was not afraid. It was counting down to Sunday. Morning laid a pale stripe of light across my kitchen tile, and the air carried that stale, sweet sour of spilled wine gone sticky. I brewed coffee that tasted like pennies at first sip. Nerves do that. And stood barefoot until the heat in the mug finally reached my palms. I slid the host tent card into a manila envelope, tucked the glossy listening dinner sheet behind it, and wrote the date across the seam. Evidence belongs in daylight. June knocked and let herself in with a short, "You good?" That meant more than the words. She set down a paper bag, like a nurse sets a tray. New lock cylinders, a handful of labeled key envelopes, and a roll of blue painter's tape. "For marking what's theirs and what's not," she said. Her jacket smelled like cold air and laundry soap. I wanted to cry for a second. I didn't. We planned the choreography. Sunday at 3, no snacks, no tea service, chairs at equal height, script on paper, copies for each son, signatures, or next steps. June offered to sit in. I shook my head. "No triangulation, but be nearby," I said. She nodded once, not offended, and wrote her number on a sticky note anyway, like a lighthouse writes itself on the horizon. My phone buzzed with a number I didn't know. HOA compliance. The voice was warm and official, concern wrapped in policy. A complaint had been logged about valet cones and an apparent commercial function. Possible fines, they said. I said clearly that I had not consented, would file a non-consent notice, and had photographs and timestamps. "Send them," the voice said. "We'll note your file." My cheeks went hot, then cooled. Money, reputation, paper trails. At the print shop, toner hung in the air like chalk. I ordered 3 copies of my house policy and a dozen of the corrections request on letterhead. While the machine hummed, a hand touched my sleeve. Marjorie Keene's pearls caught the fluorescent light. Her smile was careful, like a ribbon you can untie without wrinkling. "Nora, thank you for opening your home," she said, voice pitched for an audience. 2 people at the counter glanced up. My throat felt raw, but my voice came even. "I did not open my home," I said. I was not present and did not consent to political use of my address. Her blink was quick, almost invisible. "Oh, well," she said, smoothing air. "The boys told us you love to host." A misunderstanding. The word boys in her mouth scraped me. Behind us, the copier beeped. I let the sound fill the pause and then said, "Please correct any reference that names me as host." Publicly. She held my gaze a beat, then nodded, the pearls settling against her collarbone with a soft click. People heard. Good. Let the air carry the truth for once. Back home, a small white envelope waited under the mat. Lasker letterhead. The paper smelled faintly of cologne and ink. They were pleased to update language and proposed a charitable contribution in lieu of public chatter. I placed the letter beside the chipped sideboard and photographed them together, the pretty words and the hurt wood in one frame. My phone pinged. Bank alert. A linen service had managed a small charge in the night. It was the size of a nice dinner. My stomach tightened anyway. I called Tasha at the bank, and while she reversed it, I could hear keys clacking on her end like rain. "You're doing fine," she said. Not praise. A fact. On the neighborhood board, a thread had bloomed like mold. One neighbor claimed I'd backed out at the last minute. Another wrote that mothers should support their sons' ambitions. I typed one sentence, and only one. Correction. I did not host or consent to last night's gathering. Please direct event questions to the organizers. Then I closed the tab before the comment mill could grind me down to powder. The house creaked in a familiar way, heat in the ducts settling with a small tick. I breathed in through my nose, tasted old rosemary and lemon soap, and exhaled the ache that wanted me to explain myself until I disappeared again. No more. By late afternoon, I had labeled 2 small envelopes Cole and Dylan, each with a polite line for keys and a signature. Blue painter's tape waited on the counter to mark any item they claim as theirs. Policy copies sat in a neat stack like boundary stones. June texted a photo from the main street. The alderman's office had posted a correction: bland, bureaucratic, but public. We regret any impression that the homeowner hosted. I felt something inside me unwind one click. Then, another ping, a calendar invitation forwarded by mistake. Follow up at the Whitman house. Tentative. My name, again, used like an address as a person. Blood rang in my ears. I wrote one more line into the Sunday script. No future events at my home without written consent. Violations end access same day. I read it out loud. It sounded like an adult. Near dusk, I stood at the back door and found the mixer box still dented from where it had propped the door. A pale streak of cold snuck along the floor and curled around my ankles. I locked the deadbolt, tugged once, and felt the clean catch. In the reflection on the glass, my face looked like my mother's when she finally stopped apologizing for taking up space. There was a quiet I hadn't felt in years. Not absence. Room. By mid-morning, the house had that damp, after-party chill. I brewed coffee until the kitchen smelled like toast and bitterness, then spread everything on the table: photos, invoices, the host card, my policy copies. The paper edges rasped under my fingertips. I could feel my pulse in the pad of my thumb, steady now, not frantic. June texted, "Standing by. Do you want me in the next room?" I stared at the words until I could name what I wanted: strength without spectacle. "Yes," I wrote. "In the den. Silent." I filed the HOA packet with timestamps, the cursor blinking like a tiny metronome counting down to 3. The alderman's correction went live on a second channel, bland phrasing, but public. Lasker's firm posted an update too, bearing my name under neutral language. I printed screenshots with dates like a teacher grading work no one thought I would check. A bank email arrived, linen charge reversed, vendor block placed. Relief opened in my chest like a window. Then the doorbell rang. Dylan stood on the step in a blazer that tried too hard, a to-go cup steaming in his hand like a prop. Up close, he looked younger and sharper at the same time. Ambition does that to a face. "Mom," he said, aiming for warm, landing on rehearsed. "We should clear the air before 3. My stomach tightened, a small fist opening and closing. I stepped back exactly 1 pace and no more. The hall smelled faintly of wax and old roses. He started with flattery, slid into duty. Then fear. Bennett is powerful. The alderman remembers slights. A reputation is a delicate thing. He said I had made us look small. The word us curled somewhere tender and old. I breathed through my nose until my tongue stopped tasting metal. "We are small when we ask my house to be a disguise," I said. He blinked, surprised I had named it clean. He asked for a compromise, something quiet, an apology to keep doors open. He meant their doors. "At 3, I said. "With your brother. With paper." I held up the policy. He looked at it the way people look at weather they hoped would pass. Behind him, the maple leaves rattled like soft applause. He tried one more door. "You love to host." And I felt the heat rise under my skin. Not anger, not yet. just a boundary warming to life. I love to feed people I choose, I said. I do not love being staff. Silence spread between us, clean and a little cold. He glanced over my shoulder, maybe sensing June's stillness in the house. Then he nodded once, tight, and left. With his cup, heel clicks fading down the walk. When the lock turned, the tumblers made a low certain sound. My hands were steady. The clock in the living room ticked with a small brass confidence. I set 2 chairs at equal height at the table and placed pens beside the copies. No coasters, no tea, just paper and daylight. At 3, the house held a church hush. 2 straight-backed chairs faced mine, pens lined up like rails. June's presence in the den was a soft weight, like a hand on my shoulder I could feel without seeing. Cole arrived first, cologne bright as citrus peel, voice gentle and managerial. Dylan came half a minute later, jaw tight, blazer creased. The room smelled faintly of lemon soap and cooled coffee. I didn't offer any. "This will be brief," I said. My voice was low, steady. I slid the packet forward. A 1-page policy, photographs of the chip in the sideboard, the host tent card, the event sheet. "This home will not be used without written consent. Political use is prohibited. Costs require pre-approval in writing. Damages are reimbursed. Keys are returned today." I felt my pulse in my wrists, heavy but even. Cole skimmed, eyes flicking for loopholes. "Mom," he said softly, "we honored your boundary." I laid the photo of the valet cones over his sentence, then the bank alert printout, then the neighborhood post. Dylan's mouth went flat. "You made us look small," he said. I let the words sit in the air until they cooled. "No," I said. I stopped shrinking. "Keys," I said next, holding out the small envelopes labeled with their names. Metal ticked against wood as Cole's key landed. "Temporary," he said, trying to make it a promise I hadn't offered. Dylan's hand stayed in his pocket. "I have follow-ups on the calendar," he said. "Important people expect—" I leaned in just enough to feel the table edge against my ribs. "Your calendar does not include my address," I said. The silence that followed was clear, like winter light. Dylan pushed back from the chair. "You're burning bridges." My throat tasted like copper. I swallowed it down. "I am building a door," I said. "From my side, it locks." He laughed once, a sharp bark, then looked toward the hall, toward June he couldn't quite see, and the bravado slipped. I set the locksmith's card on the table. "If the second key is not here by 5, the locks change tonight." Cole glanced at Dylan, at me, at the photos. Something in his face softened and hardened at once. Embarrassment's twin. "We'll cover the sideboard," he said quietly, signing his copy. The pen rasped faintly. The sound steadied my breathing. Dylan lifted the policy, scanned, then tore the signature page clean in half. Paper ripped like fabric. The sound rang. In the den, the old clock answered with a single, neat tick. I took out my phone and, without looking away from him, tapped the locksmith number. He watched me, waiting for bluff. June stepped into the doorway, not a word, only presence. The call connected. "Yes," I said. "Tonight." I set the time and ended it, the click small and final. Dylan's jaw worked. He put his hand in his pocket, metal chinked, and for one suspended beat, I thought he might place the key down. He didn't. He turned and left, the door shuddering once in its frame. Cole stayed seated, pen cooling in his fingers. The house exhaled. The locksmith arrived a little after 4:30, boots damp, tool bag smelling of graphite and cold metal. He worked with that quiet competence that calms a room. Shavings glittered on the mat like steel confetti. The old cylinder came out with a cough. The new deadbolt slid in clean. Every turn of his wrench steadied my pulse. June sat in the den, a steady silhouette. Outside, the maple leaves clicked like small coins. A few minutes before 5, Dylan's car door thudded. He came up the walk fast, breath bright with mint, suit wrinkled at the waist. "This is insane," he said, voice pitched to Carrie, eyes flicking to the neighbor's porch where a wind chime answered him with a nervous little rattle. I stepped onto the threshold, felt the cool brass of the new key in my palm, and kept my voice low. "You chose not to return your key. I chose to secure my home." He lifted his hand, metal flashed. "Here." "Happy?" he said, placing the old key on the rail like a dare. The locksmith looked at me, at the rail, at the new faceplate gleaming. "That one won't work anymore," I said. Not cruel, just true. Color rose under Dylan's collar. "You do this to your son?" The old script reached for me, sticky and familiar. It did not land. "I did this for myself," I said. 4 simple words. They surprised me with how light they felt. Across the street, Mrs. Dalton's dog barked twice. Hush, hush, like punctuation. Dylan's shoulders sagged a notch, then squared. "There are follow-ups on the calendar," he said. "Not here," I answered. "Any future visit is by invitation with notice. No events, no exceptions." June stepped into view then, not to speak, just to be seen. The angle of Dylan's jaw shifted. He picked up the useless key, turned it in his fingers, and pocketed it like a lesson he didn't want. "Fine," he said, and left with less noise than he had brought. Inside, the new bolt turned with a soft, decisive click. The sound felt like a small ceremony. Cole texted soon after. A photo of a receipt for the sideboard repair, a short line. "Scheduled for Wednesday." And after a beat, "I'm sorry." I let the apology sit where it fell and replied with logistics only. "Thank you. Please confirm reimbursement for linens and cleaning." Lasker's office posted a clearer correction, my name out of their mouths at last, and the alderman's page mirrored it. The HOA email landed next. Complaint closed, warning noted, file updated with my non-consent. I printed everything and slid it into the envelope marked evidence, the flap rasping shut like a page turning. At sunset, the house smelled like lemon oil and cool air. I set 2 bowls on the table, soup, nothing fancy, and texted June from the next room because the gesture made me smile. "Stay?" She did. We ate quietly, spoons tapping porcelain, the day cooling around us. I felt the after of adrenaline in my elbows and the soft ache behind my eyes that comes after you have told the truth for hours. I pictured a before, me ghosting through rooms with a tray, and an after, me sitting at my own table, feet warm on the floor. The distance between them is a door with a lock I own. Later, I sent one family-wide message. New house rules attached. Visits by invitation. No use of address or space without written consent. Charges require pre-approval. Boundaries will be enforced without exception. I love you. I am not staff. Cole replied, "Understood." Dylan's dots pulsed, vanished, returned. Then finally, "I need time." I let the phone go dark and turned off the light without that old rush to tidy the world. The quiet was not empty. It was mine.